Hi everyone, welcome to this leadership interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you're not aware, Core is a global recruitment specialist and we look after mid to senior levels across all functions for exec and non-exec roles. We're very lucky to have an amazing lineup of speakers who cover all areas of hospitality, leisure and retail who are joining us for this series, and they're all published on our website www.corerecruitment.com if you want to look up any other fabulous speakers. Now, this series is all geared around kind of like 20 minutes interviews, and it's meant to be kind of a snapshot of these business leaders and interesting people. And we're always trying to inject some positivity into the sector. So hopefully this will gear you up for the rest of your day. And today we're joined by one of my favorites, Jason Cotta. Hi, Jason. How are you?
Hiya, I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very, very good indeed. Excited to
Excellent.
be chatting. So we're going to go straight in. Now, we've known each other a long time, on and off.
Yeah.
And over the years, whether it's collecting references, taking a job brief, whatever it might be, you always have a very balanced, pragmatic approach to business, how you treat others, ethics, that whole side of things. Were you born like this? Is this something which kind of was sprung upon you? Was it hammered into you over time? Where did this kind of camouflage approach come from? And it has always been the case.
Wow, big lead in. I think that um, I think I've developed it over years, to be honest. I don't think I was always this this calm, this pragmatic, this balanced. I think that I mean it is the benefit of getting a little bit older. Um, and I think being conscious of the impact that you have on others and how your behavior impacts others. And we've all worked for, great leaders and not so great leaders over the years, and you learn from them all. And I know I'm veering into cliche here, so let's stop that. I think it's about how you develop your style over time. And I think that what I've learned in the more recent years is that if you approach any situation with this sort of calm, rational, balanced view of the world, you are almost certain to get a better outcome. And um, and I think if people see you respond to that, to crisis like that, if they see you respond in the worst of times like that, then it gives license for people to behave the same way and for that sort of behavior to work down your organization or work through your organization. And I think that that is really important. And I think that increasingly these days we talk about that sort of psychological safety point, and
Hmm.
I I do wince a little bit at the phrase because I'm also pretty, I guess, pragmatic the other way that life is tough and it's not fair, so best get used to that. Um, as much as I might want it to be different, life's not fair. Things are hard, and so I think the psychological safety point doesn't have to mean that you're going to create an easy ride for people all of the way through. Things can still be difficult, but I still think you can be balanced and fair and predictable about most things in business, and then that enables people to make better decisions. So it's a learned behavior, Christian. Anyone can have it, yeah.
I'm still developing it myself, so it's like it's great that there's hope for all of us. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
good thing, Jason. But was this kind of like developed over time? And I guess kind of like was this something that you became conscious of through a review process or through a system or something like that? And likewise, now that you're in a leadership role within like a massive organization with lots of great developing kind of senior leaders, how do you get people to become conscious of their effect on other people within the organization?
Um, I think it's exactly that. I think it's by helping them to recognize the impact that they're having. So I think that having being a great leader is to be honest with people about the things that they do well and they don't do so well. And I think that, that's at the core of leadership, isn't it? That you have to be confident enough, capable in a respectful way to tell someone when they're to just tell someone when they're wrong, or at least to ask them to say, to say to people, and I kind of like this question, is that, this is what I observed and this was the impact you had. Is that what you were shooting for? Because if that was the outcome you were looking for, well, crack on. I don't agree with it, but you got what you wanted. But if that's not how you wanted the other person to go away feeling, or you wanted the situation to evolve, then take a long, hard look at yourself and do it differently next time. And I think so. I think it's that. I think it's to be a great leader, to be a good leader is to be honest with the people around you and to help them develop and feel better and be better. And then just to, say to them, is that what you wanted? And I think that works with I think it can work with anybody and in almost any situation as well. And God knows I'm not perfect and and I get it wrong too. But I think that having that self-reflection on is this the outcome I was looking for? And if it isn't, then think differently about it. And secondly, that you say that to the people around you to check whether or not that was the outcome they were looking for.
Such a good phrase. I'm definitely going to use that moving forward. What's your objective, Armageddon? Is
Well, this is
that
the point, isn't it? That person's walked away broken. Is that what you were looking for? I mean,
yeah,
if it was, then you might not be right for this business, but equally you got what you wanted. So yeah,
yeah,
uh,
absolutely. Now, your stable of brands from an external perspective seems to be performing extremely well. Do you think you guys are just uber resilient to the current market challenges, or have you been taking steps to kind of like superproof yourselves?
so I think there is some in my sort of three businesses. So Faux, Rosa's, Mowgli. I think they're all individually differentiated within their space. I think their food's differentiated. I think their approach is differentiated, and I think that they are, they're in that sort of next generation of brands that have still got a lot of space to grow into. So they've got a lot of space just because we're physically, there's 50, number 50 Faux just opened. We're approaching 50 in Roses. We're at 26, 27 in Mowgli. So there's lots of just white space to go after, which helps with the growth thing. And then secondly, I think there's this, well, firstly, there's this differentiated point. There is a bit of growth in the sort of Asian branded space as well, which I think also helps. So I think there is market benefit. And then I think part of the reason for sort of founding Arcturus and which is the holding company for these three restaurant businesses and all majority owned by Trispan, was to realize synergies. Yes, of course, but I think there's a soft synergy benefit, which is like a flywheel benefit around the development of the individuals in these businesses and the development of these businesses that is accelerated by having me around, not me specifically, but having somebody else around who can sit above them and be combination critical friend, strategic, driver of strategic imperative, thinker, the longer term thinking piece that enables all of the CEOs in the team to grow and to accelerate their growth, to learn from each other, to learn from me, which then benefits those business and accelerates them. So I think it's both of those things. I think there's market benefit, and then I think there's sort of Arcturus led benefit that is helping these businesses right now. And then let's not forget they're great businesses. I've got lucky to have five founders still in the businesses as well, who have various roles around those businesses and are the cultural ambassadors, keep us honest, keep us focused on the core of those businesses in the way that only founders can. I've never been a founder, I've never been that brave, and I think that they do that for us, which is helpful. So I think it's a combination of those things.
And retaining those founders, keeping those very individual brands with very individual brand identities, I can imagine that there must be kind of like a back of house cost saving synergy that might happen with being kind of like a larger group, or there might be kind of like elements that you might want to, other cup companies might want to synergize. But like when you're growing and you're scaling something kind of like in the way that you guys want to do it, how do you maintain those individual brand integrities while kind of like hitting those synergies?
So I think Trispan were very clear at the beginning of this that this was not about homogenizing these businesses into one sort of pan-Asian fusion thing. It was definitely about protecting individuality. So I came in right at the outset with an instruction to protect them as individual businesses and then to realize the synergies alongside of it. So I mean, in truth, we've started with the things that people don't get overly excited about. So, insurance or audit, with all due respect to people that work in insurance and audit, both of which are very important, very, very important. But people tend not to get over emotional about those things. So I think that we've been able, as a sort of Arcturus group, to go out and negotiate with people that do those things to get great deals for all three businesses without upsetting anybody in the business, because all you really care about is am I insured for that thing? Yes, I am. Great. Um, there's possibly not a lot of there's not a lot of emotion in those things. I think on the sort of food procurement, sort of menu development side of things, then tread carefully is the way that we've thought about it, because that is at the core of protecting that individuality. So, it would be so easy to go out and sort of homogenize those things and just buy all of one, put it into all three restaurants. And we've worked hard and will continue to work hard to make sure we just don't do that, because I think that's the start of a dangerous path, and I don't want to go down it. So I think we can. There's a bit more we can do around some of the sort of less emotive things, and then I think over time we will try and think about having a not a shared tech stack, but certainly using similar systems and making sure that we, when we have an opportunity to change a system, that we make a change that's ultimately going to benefit all of the group, not just the restaurant the business that we're doing it in.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you guys are still acquisitive. You're still looking at other things to invest in. There's lots of rumors that circle around every single time there's an industry event about who that might or might not be. Asian,
Yeah,
non-Asian, Asian, non-Asian.
yeah.
But like, when you're looking at potential kind of like, things to bring into the stable, what's your criteria? What are you kind of like really looking for that's going to stand out in the current market?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, I think Trispan are pretty clear about this actually, which is kind of helpful. And they've done a bunch of desktop work around understanding, what's the addressable market of businesses that might be looking for, private equity investment, and all the benefits that come with being private equity owned or backed or invested that come. So I think, and then within, if you sort of narrow it to the Asian space, then there's a whole group of companies there. But Trispan would talk about 6 to 10 units, 1 to 2 million of EBITDA, still founder led, with a founder that wants to stay in with us and help grow the business through the next stage. So that gives you a whole, a quite narrow, a helpfully narrowed subset of companies that you would consider. Um, Beyond that, I mean, obviously Trispan are now co-owners of Flatiron. That's not within my group, but that's an amazing acquisition, an amazing investment. I'm sure it will go off and they'll do wonderful things with it. Tom's absolutely super over there, and clearly great founders. So I think that there is definitely a couple of things we're looking at right now, early stage conversations. But as ever with these things, the buyer and the seller have to have broadly aligning value expectations, and that's always the bit that takes a bit of negotiation, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
let's see. Let's see.
Abs-
I would hope that we can bring something else under the umbrella in 2026. That would be great.
Excellent. So coming onto your career journey, you've had, PE, you've had corporate, you've had entrepreneur-led businesses, and every one of them has been kind of like, extremely different. Like, what skills have you developed in each one of those environments? Maybe if we take kind of like corporate, we take PE, back to we take entrepreneur, something that you've taken away as a medal from kind of each one. What would you say you've learned?
I think um, I think that it's oh yeah, I'm going to take them in turn. I think if you work in those sort of big corporate environments, I was lucky enough to do quite a lot of years with Whitbread. I mean, that's an amazing business. I think when you work in that kind of FTSE 100 um, kind of business, then they typically have a long view. They're in it for the long term. They think about that in terms of how they invest in, infrastructure, and how they invest in real estate, but they particularly think about it in how they invest in people,
Yeah.
and developing people over the long run, and being proud of the fact that they develop people over the long run. I think that's probably what I'll take from that. And then a whole bunch of, systems and processes and balanced scorecards and all those kind of things that the big corporates do so well, and that help you run big estates of whatever you're talking about. There was 2,500 Costas in the UK and I when I finished, and after the Coke deal. So you can't manage 2,500 coffee shops individually. You need systems and processes and great people along the way in order to do that. So probably that from the corporate world. from the PE world, and I love PE. I mean, I'm this is Trispan will probably be the sixth or seventh PE house I've worked for. And for those guys, I love the lack of emotion in it. It's about in a good way, not that they're unemotional people, but that it's this is what we set out to do. Did you do it? Well, why didn't you do it? This is the money we invested. This is the return you promised us. You haven't deserved the return. Why haven't you done it? There's no anger. There's no emotion in it. It's just very factual, and I think I think that's a great way to think about business. So I think that I like working in PE because of the lack of emotion in the financial decision, and in the plan, and then I guess also in PE is very open-minded about change, and in fact they are the sort of the epitome of driving change in business. So I think that that's probably what I take from that is be open-minded, be curious, try new things, you know fail fast, all the it feels cliched, but it is somewhat true, and that is what PE brings. They bring pace, and heightened expectations and stretch budgets and things that help businesses really move forward at pace. And on the entrepreneur-led thing, I mean, obviously I spent a year with Itsu and Julian, and who's quite incredible in terms of his drive and passion and enthusiasm for that business. But it's exactly the same with the five founders that I'm working with now. You've got Juliet and Stephen in Fo, you've got Saipin and Alex in Rosas, and you've got obviously Nisha in Mowgli, and they're all very different, but they all have at their core this utter belief in what they're doing, and the importance of what they're doing, and in their passion for what they do, and they're just sort of never in unrelenting drive for doing it in the best possible way. And I think I probably take that out of it. And I always say this, that it is to be a founder, to found something and begin something, to create something from nothing. That's a truly admirable thing. And yeah, I mean, as I've said, I've never been brave enough to do it. I've never been the person that's bet my house on an idea, and these guys, that's the kind of thing they've done. They've
Did you ever get close, Jason?
No, not really. I
Oh,
mean,
there's a story there. There's a
no,
story
no,
there.
no, 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 no. I tell you, the reason why I say not really is because the reason that I went into restaurants and left supermarket retail was because I wanted to own my own restaurant. I wanted to run my own, wanted to run my own business, and I sort of looked at my, great years in supermarkets and thought, well, I'm never going to learn how to run a restaurant while I'm running a supermarket, so I better go and work in restaurants and see if I can do it. And I mean, and obviously I went into restaurants and absolutely loved it, but but quickly worked out I never wanted to risk my own money doing it because it's really hard. It's really hard making money in restaurants, and so I kind of walked away from the idea after the first year, 18 months in Fridays. So but it was yeah, so that's about as close as I've got. It was not very close, really.
Nice. Now, about 5 years ago, you very kindly did an interview with Core Recruitment regarding Pride Month, and we discussed a lot about diversity. We actually figured out that I always thought I was quite diverse, but I think you're even more diverse than I am, kind of like in terms of the boxes tick there, Jason, which is quite
Yeah,
an accomplishment.
tick a few boxes.
I don't mind saying, you know what I mean, keeping the quotas up, right? But like last 5 years, what do you feel has changed? And because it feels different now, doesn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, what do I think? I think there's been a lot in the macro that has happened, hasn't there, in the last 5 years? So, be it trans rights versus not trans rights, be it Trump and his whole sort of DEI backlash. I think, there's been a lot of noise in the broader diversity space over the course of the last, 5 years. I think you're right. Um, and I think that has caused an amount of reevaluation around, where companies are spending money in seeking to be diverse. Um, I suppose we should also add in the sort of our growing awareness of neurodiversity as well as being another thing that we've suddenly or more recently started thinking about as being a good thing and how do we think about that thing? And so I think there's been a lot of noise and a lot of energy that's been expended in the space. Where that's left us, I think, is specifically as a sector, I think hospitality has always been pretty inclusive and remains so. I think that as an industry, we've never really cared about who you are or what you are, as long as you could turn up, do the job well, work hard, smile, and wanted to be here. So I think I don't think that's changed. I think that's good. That's a good thing, and it hasn't changed. And I think we continue to do some of that stuff. So that's great. Um, I think more broadly, what do I think? I don't think we've gone backwards, but I think there is a risk that we could go backwards. Um, because I think there is a lot of talk around whether or not it's worth investing in DEI or it's worth thinking about these things. And I think we should be aware of that. That the sort of backsliding element on this is possible.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think you very kindly invited me to the Attitude Awards this year, and Russell Tovey won Man of the Year and went up and did an absolute barnstorming acceptance speech about exactly this point. That rights are can be fragile things. What can be given can be taken away, and I think being mindful of that is important without worrying overly about it. But being mindful about it is something to consider.
Absolutely, absolutely well put. So, you got into hospital. What got you into hospitality, and what keeps you motivated in hospitality, other than a very brief holiday you had in the care sector, which we maybe, well, you can talk about it if you want to, but I mean, I think it kind of looked on LinkedIn like you dipped a toe in and then ran a mile. But I mean, you tell me what happened.
Um, so, so I think I kind of just alluded to it. So I came into hospitality after quite a long opening stint in supermarkets, which I cut my teeth as a leader and a manager in supermarkets, and I came into hospitality in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and then have never really left other than 18 months in the care sector, as you say. Um, I think that I got into hospitality because I wanted to own a restaurant. I then never did that, but that's what started me off. And then once I got into hospitality, I kind of discovered myself, if you will, in the what was I good at, and that was sort of communication, I guess, for the want of a better word. I like words, I like people, I like communication, and hospitality gives you so many opportunities to do that, be that with guests or with team. And I liked it, and I found I was good at it, so I kind of stuck with it. And this is relevant to the brief sojourn in the care sector, is that ultimately we spend our life selling a happy thing. We sell food in great environments to people that want to consume food in great environments. And having spent 2 years in the care sector, which is fundamentally important to us all,
Yeah.
but nobody wants to buy a place in their care home for their parents or their loved one of any description. It's not a purchase that you look forward to. It's very, very important, incredibly important, but you're never looking forward to it. Um, and that gives you a very different spin on how you think
Mm.
about customer service, how you think about interacting with people. And bearing in mind the care company I worked for was very, very good, Care UK, but you're selling a product no one really wanted to buy. Whereas in restaurants, you're selling a product everyone wants to buy. So
And
I think for me,
was there a moment of realization with that when you were kind of like, because sometimes you speak to people and they do change sector, and it's always a question that I ask is like, what was the moment when you kind of went, not sure if this is the right thing for me?
um, probably because it's um, you have to find your value. You have to find your value in a different way, because what people that work in the care sector do is priceless. I mean, people that can turn up and do that every single day, and that I mean everybody in the care sector, from the people that to the home help through to people in high needs care homes through to, all of those people are doing an incredibly valuable thing to society and to humankind in general. But I think you have to get your kicks from the value that you create in society, as opposed to from doing something that's making anybody happy in the grand scheme of things. And I think for me, it was I couldn't see enough value in what I was doing as being the reason to do it, and that I liked selling the happy thing more. So I mean, maybe that makes me pretty shallow, Christian, to be honest. But I think that I have a deep respect for people that work in the care sector because it is tough. Um, but I think that for me, it was I couldn't get enough joy out of it to keep doing it.
100%. I mean, both my parents work for the NHS, and I have nothing but respect for anyone who works in any type of like care, just
100%.
care. But at the same time, like, when you're getting out of bed every morning, you have to have that thing that gets you out of bed every morning. And
You
I
do.
think those individuals have a high degree of resilience and all of that kind of stuff as well. I mean, everyone moans about school teachers' holidays, but would I look after 30 kids every day and not have kind of 8 weeks holiday? I'm all right, thanks. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. As you know, I'm married to a teacher, so I've been in education for the last 27 years as well. And I mean, every day I'm like, oh, wow, I couldn't do that.
no, exactly. There needs to be an upside.
Yeah.
So, in terms of advice that you would give to future leaders who are maybe at that whitbread stage of their journey for you, that kind of side of things, they're looking at you and going like, "Wow, how do I get a job like that? What do I need to do? How do I develop myself?" What advice would you give them?
Um, I think it is. Um, I think in your sense of self, then where do you get your joy? What is it that makes you happy? That you remain open-minded about change, about self-development, that you have some level of you have a good level of self-awareness around, who am I? What kind of leader am I? What is it I want to do? And I mean, I know it's about that, but I do think you need a plan. You always need a plan. I've always got a plan for my career, I mean, and I kind of write it in 5 year increments. And it's always wrong. Don't get me wrong. It never turns out the way I want it to. But to if you don't have a plan, then that's worse than having a plan and it not kind of panning out. So probably since I was 25, I guess I've written the next 5 years, each 5 years, with a goal to get to by the time I get to the next 5 year. And I worked out over time as well that I started out with those just being career plans, and then I moved on to them much more about being much more holistic, So by the time I'm 30, I want to be, could be any of these, I want to be married, or I want to own a dog, or I want to drive a Mercedes, or I want to live in my own home, or I want to work abroad, or whatever it is. I want to be happily married. It doesn't. I want to have children. It doesn't matter. Wait, no, not even. It doesn't matter. The more that you can write about the future it is you want to have, then and believe me, I don't believe in manifesting or any of that kind of stuff. This is about planning for the future you would like to have. And I think that that just gives you an underlying structure to work towards. So I often say that to people that, have a plan. It won't work out the way you think it's going to, but have one anyway. That's better than not having one. And I think increasingly now, I think having those sort of, well, not increasingly, it's always been true. Sponsors and mentors, having the people around you that you cultivate relationships with that then are likely to take a chance on you at some point in the future. And I think that there's been, and we talked about this on the Pride interview actually, there's been, I don't know, 3 to 5 people in my career that have been utterly instrumental in me being in the seat I'm in today because they saw something in me, they gave me a shot, they drove me hard, whatever it was, they gave me good advice, and then some of them gave me a chance at something as well. And I think that we all need that, and that's not I'm not talking about sort of nepotism kind of thing, but just that everybody needs somebody to sort of who's further up the chain and is able to sort of sponsor them and look out for them. And I think for me that is fundamental. And and don't get me wrong, it is the best bit of my job is to be able to help other people that are coming up the ranks behind me, and to give some people a shot from time to time.
Love all of that. I mean, I really do quite a lot of cosmic ordering myself, Jason. So like, I completely stand against you on that one. And sometimes it works. So like, it's no bad thing. My final question was going to be crystal ball, three things that we should be looking at for the next 12 months. But I'm really interested in what's in your 5-year plan for where you're up to in the 5-year plan. And like, is this something you look at every Sunday morning? It's like, this is something I'm going to start doing. Like, I mean, how often do you pull out the 5-year plan? Is it in a dark moment with a glass of whiskey at 4 o'clock in the morning, or what is it?
No, I mean, I guess no. So I think that I wanted to. I mean, all of these plans that I mean, they just don't come off sometimes. Chris, it's just when I joined Onenstein, I so this one's particularly career orientated, but when I joined Onenstein, I was just after 50. I was just 50. Um, I genuinely wanted it to be my last job because I thought, okay, right, we've got a 5-year run to when we sell this thing. I've come in 2020, yeah, circa 2025. Nordic Capital, the owners of that business and still the owners now of that business, will want to be out. I'll then stay for another couple of years after that. I'll find my successor. In that period of time, I'm going to get a couple of non-exec gigs. I'm going to find a chairmanship somewhere, a little small company that might want somebody like me, and then I'll call it when I'm 60 and I'll retire. Um, I'll retire from a full-time exec role, with a sum of money that I got from growing and successfully selling Hollenstein and whatever happened. And hey, come March 2020, there was an international pandemic and the wheels came off catastrophically. So, here I am in 2025 and somewhat back at the start of a similar kind of journey. So, I've now had the opportunity to work for Trispan and to found Arcturus and to kind of go again. So, here I'm back at the beginning somewhat of that, but 5 years older, and now I'm sort of thinking, well, okay, I've got three great organizations. We should going to bring them together. We're going to make this new company, maybe buy something else, scale the business, sell it in 3 to 5 years from now. You see in a common thing of find my successor, groom them for that, get a couple of non-exec jobs, and then retire. So yeah, look, it rarely happens the way that you think it's going to, and but I think it's still good to have it in your head as to when you're gonna do that thing. Um, and much earlier in my career, it was when I was 25, it was I want to be a GM by the time I'm 30.
Yeah.
And when I was 30, it was I want to be an area manager by the time I'm 35, and I want to be an ops director by the time I'm 40. So I hooked a lot of it to job titles and to those kind of things. It was only as I've grown as a human, that you start to sort of build the other things around it to say, what do you want to do and where do you want to be in life and what things do you want to have achieved? And I think that's the powerful bit for me.
That's amazing. I love that insight. It's really good. So, crystal ball time. We won't do three things. We'll just do one thing you think for 2026 that should be front and center for every company or should be on the radar.
So this is a hospitality specific one. I think that we have taken a lot of value from the consumer since the pandemic. So I need that, and specifically, I mean that we have put prices up a lot since 2020, and I don't yet think we've done enough to earn it. And I think that in 2026 will be what separates the wheat from the chaff, is those that are utterly focused on delivering for their guest and being worth the price we charge will win out in the end, and those that don't won't. And then within that, I think that you have to be, as an operator and as a business leaders, better than we've ever been at practically every line of the P&L and everything we do in order to make money in casual dining these days. And that's the other bit. And I think there's a whole bunch of tech enablement in there that we are playing with. Everyone says AI, everyone says systems and all the rest of it. But I do genuinely think that as an industry, we're in the dark ages. there's so much that we can do to systemize and become better. And I think that will be a fundamental part of underpinning the financial performance of the business such that we can create the value for our guests and deliver that value to them. And then those companies that do both of those things will be the ones that win out and create value over the next 3 to 5 years.
I think that's really insightful and spot on, Jason. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. I really, really, really appreciate it. Definitely going to go and work on my 5-year plan as soon as we end this call. I think that's going to be my job moving forward. I might send it to you so you can hold me to
Yeah,
account
yeah,
for it and kind of
yeah,
work another 5-year thing because I need that in my life.
yeah.
And then we'll go from there. But thanks so much for taking the time and best of luck with the new acquisitions when you can announce them.
Great. Thanks a lot. Great to speak to you again.